Dean Walker. I'm the founder of a small organization on the interwebs called Living Resilience. And the purpose of Living Resilience is to offer transformative support, resources, and practices to people bravely facing human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems. And chances are, if you're watching this video newly, you're seeing it on the Poetry of Predicament podcast, which is a YouTube channel. And it's in the background of this Living Resilience body of work. And primarily where others will watch this video for the first time will be in one of the courses that we offer in our what we would call our Living Resilience community space. It's a Mighty Networks space. And on that site, we have our online courses. And one of the kind of cornerstones there is our introductory course in order to serve the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities. And our newest iteration of an introductory course is called Collateral Beauty. And it's a 5-section, intended to be over 5 weeks, self-paced course. It's recordings only for the most part. We will do a few live online versions, and eventually someday we'll get back to doing live in-person courses. But for the moment, it's recordings only, and it's there on the Living Resilience community space. And this will be offered in one of the last couple of sections of this course. And it's really a little ahead of its time, meaning that it's pretty advanced level for our work. And so a lot of people start out their entire just consideration of the conversation of human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems. They start out at a level where sometimes it's kind of they've received a shock, as Mike Tyson might call it, a punch to the face. That's a figurative way of saying that something really jarring has happened. They've experienced some kind of extreme weather event, some sort of disaster, some aspect of collapse in their personal lives or larger that has really gotten their attention. And that's the kind of introductory material that we would be working with for the first few weeks of this introductory course: how to self-regulate, how to co-regulate with others in the face of larger and larger stressors. And as a person goes through the weeks of the course, they'll start to discover that there are more advanced levels of skill sets that can be learned if a person takes this on as a path. I mean, it could be a lifelong path for us, but certainly long enough for a person to be able to get some skills to be able to be of service to the people they love should another large-scale disaster or stressor come their way. Why we are having this rather unusual piece in this course at all is it's enchanting to me. And having put together this body of work, it's sometimes very difficult to describe how there can be the most extraordinary, transformative inner and outer resources that start to show up for people as they do this work. And this interview in this podcast, again called You're Going to Die, you'll find out that these are extraordinarily open-hearted people. Like that's understating it. You'll meet Abigail Bengson, who she and her spouse provide some of the most beautiful, inspiring music I've ever heard. And you'll start to get a sense of her heart and what it's like to live with a heart that open. Interestingly enough, the host, Ned Buskirk, also comes in with a heart wide open. They, in fact, don't even give the listener any kind of introduction to their space. They just come in wide open to each other and basically figuratively fall into each other's arms in the most beautiful way. So I invite you to bask in this. If it seems a little odd, or why are they so effusive and what's going on, I'd ask that you just keep asking yourself the question, what would happen if I opened my heart as far as I could, as wide as I could, as deeply as I could? And I think you'll find that that is what you're listening to in this 90-minute interview. It's quite extraordinary. If it's uncomfortable in any way, I would invite you to just stay with it. And if it's too much, I understand. Yet it is something that is foreign to most of us, to be this open, to be this full of love, and yet also fully in touch with the deep humanity that's involved when we grieve together. It's extraordinary. This is a personification of what I have come to call the implicit, the deepest inner resources that we have. All human beings, I would assert, have access to this, but unfortunately, very, very few of us really have any sort of access to this implicit state inside of us on an ongoing basis. If you'll listen to this podcast, you'll get a direct experience of a couple of people who have access to that implicit set of senses, that implicit system, that wide open and deeply open heart. This, I think, if you were to come on and to find out about this body of work and keep working it, keep expanding your capacity to be present in the face of larger and larger stressors, you may well find yourself accessing this extraordinary inner state. Hope you enjoy this and enjoy eventually going through our Collateral Beauty introductory course, and perhaps coming to join us and get your toe in the water in the various offerings of the Living Resilience community space. All that information is in the show notes. Thanks for joining us.
You're Going to Die, the podcast, is brought to you by YG2D, a 501c3 nonprofit bringing diverse communities creatively into the conversation of death and dying, inspiring life by unabashedly sourcing our shared mortality. To find out more, visit www.yg2d.com.
You're about to listen to audio capturing the exact moment where two human beings fall in love for the first time, while they simultaneously experience the sensation of already having been friends for billions of years. This episode does not need much of an intro. The conversation itself is worth getting to as soon as possible. So let's just cut to the chase. Welcome to You're Going to Die, the podcast, your creatively conscious mortality podcast. My name is Ned, your host. This episode's guest, oh my goodness. First of all, I knew about the Bengsons I've known about their music for a while. In fact, I tried to book them for a concert we were putting together. It didn't work out because they were working on a show in New York at the time. Jump to many, many months later, a dear, dear friend of mine sends me an episode of the podcast called The Best Advice Show. And Abigail Bengson is on that show. And the title of that episode, which I highly recommend, is called Let Your Voice Break. That was pretty much all it took for me to relentlessly do whatever I could to get Abigail on the show. And I'm so glad I trusted my guts so that when we finally connected, she could trust her guts and say yes, and we could share one of my most memorable conversations I've had on the podcast to date. Abigail Bengson is one half of the composing, performing, grief-working, and dumb joke writing award-winning duo the Bengsons with her beloved husband, Sean Bengson. She is a mother who has moved through loss and abundance, who has an ecstatic relationship to song and a grief-stricken love of the world. Oh my goodness. I've never put it this way. I know you're going to enjoy this episode of You're Going to Die, the podcast, with Abigail Bengson.
I don't know what's happening. I'm just weeping when I look at your face. I don't know what's happening. Oh, honey.
Oh my gosh, like what? It's like all this is going to be is us, just like a 45 minutes of us crying and laughing, alternating.
Oh my gosh. Wow, honey. Okay, well, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
All right. Hello.
Hi. So like this isn't a podcast where I suddenly say like, hey, everybody, so it's me, Ned. I'm here with that. Like we're just gonna pretty much do what we already started doing. And so it can be a conversation, like we need, and that we treat this time in a way like if we, die in a couple hours, we would have had something that meant a lot to us to share. And if we get what we need in that way, then I'm sure the listener will get what they need,
Yeah.
And I often want to start the conversation for these shows with like, how are you? Maybe you can speak to what it's feeling like being here and what's coming up for you already and what your heart's really bringing into this conversation. Cause I know there's plenty probably that you could say it carries, but I do want to start with that version of a really genuine, like, how are you doing and how are you here? Question.
Whoa. Well, I'm feeling, I feel like big things moving through us and between us right away, which is really deep and good. And I feel like this relief. I feel like when I know that I feel like with you, I get to be in the truth, which is that this is all so precious and all almost over, every minute.
Yeah.
And somehow almost over and just begun and infinite
Yeah, totally.
And unfolding and it's so sad and it's so beautiful. And I feel so grateful that you're meeting me with all of that. Just already, it feels like in the room with us, like that, that it's a huge pain I'm so grateful for. And and an eternity that's so quick.
Mm.
So I'm feeling all of that together, you know, and I'm just personally today, I'm tender, you know, I'm tender, and I've been feeling, this is weird maybe, but approaching.
I mean, I think at this
not
point,
like anything else
all
I've
bets
said.
are off. Uh-huh.
But I've been feeling, as I came closer to talking with you, I've been feeling like my dead, like coming around. Like, just like, oh, remember me?
Yeah.
Remember what we were like together? Remember me? And that's my recent dead and my beloveds and like some old ones. And that's not something I'm used to.
Yeah.
And so that's a really surprising.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that you're not used to that. I'm listening to your music. I mean, genuinely, I've hung out with you for 4 hours already this morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just like first thing I put on, you know, getting the kids ready and out the door was y'all's music, and
cool.
Watching some videos, you know, that you posted online. The one worth mentioning is the Mother's Day video that you posted in 2021, I think, if you remember. But just crying and listening to the oh God, I keep thinking like ravenous is the word, but just like explosive aliveness of your music and your singing. And I was listening to all these songs thinking like, is every time there's a lyric or you introducing or Sean introducing a song somehow like, so this is a song about that I wrote for Sean to sing after he dies, or this is, you know what I mean? Like endlessly. And so when you say, I'm not used to having my dead gather up around me, I'm feeling like most of what you do, that's happening. But you're feeling like it's unique today to have that occurrence, or that maybe it's different a little bit. What do you think?
It's like, yeah. Well, I mean, Sean and I. So, okay. So the truth. So when I was 15 years old, my family just broke apart in some really catastrophic ways. And that included death. It included violence. It included just a lot. And at that time, I had a dream. I had this dream that the love of my life was going to find me. And that when I fell in love with him, he would die. And I carried this prophecy with me, this experience of this dream that gave me enormous comfort and also enormous fear. And then when I met Sean, you know, we got married 3 weeks later. Like I met him and I was like, this is it. And he sort of enacted, you know, he was the dude from the dream.
Yeah.
Which is so weird, but that's what happened.
Clear as day. Yeah.
It was clear as day. And the best thing that's ever happened for me. And, but I was so afraid of this other half of the prophecy, that he would die. And Sean and I didn't tell him that.
Yeah. Right away. First meeting.
That was like a lot, you know.
Want to go out, want to get married, you're going to die.
If you say yes, I might kill you. But that's how I felt.
Oh.
And, but we started right away. We just started to write music together. And I think the current of our love held within it this understanding that this could be brief. It was like the timer started on my life. And the stakes for living felt different. And I became both more afraid and more liberated. Like I was more afraid because everything mattered. And I was also more liberated because I had to fucking move through all of that fear to try to love him well. And of course, what that really also meant was to love myself, to love the world, to love my ancestry, to love my unborn, to love. So now he's, we've been married 15 years. He's alive.
Yeah.
I'm alive.
Yeah.
But I think what that dream was telling me was the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That everyone I love, that everyone who loves me, we're all going to lose each other. We're going to lose each other in this delicious form, that nose he has will go. And I'm so sad, and my weird back that goes out all the time, that will go. And I'm sad, because look how hard it's working to carry me all these years,
Yeah.
all that will go. And the particular ways that he loves the world, the particular personality, I will lose all of that too soon, no matter when. But I also know, that there is another landscape, that there is another, oh goodness, that there's a love beyond love, that there's a horizon beyond the horizon. And I don't believe in heaven. That's not what I mean. I mean that the wondrous truth that this moment exists feels like enough evidence that love continues.
Mm-hmm.
And if we end totally, which just doesn't feel true.
Yeah.
If we do, it was still pretty fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
this
totally.
was still worth it to me.
Yeah. Oh, what's ahead or what's not doesn't change, this. And I think part of what you're acknowledging is that this does end. It really does hold that. The risk with at least the relationship I have with heaven through religion in my past is that it's just this like new room to go into with us all kind of in the same noses and back problems, and I don't relate to that.
No.
But what I know,
actually, I've started to really feel like heaven, the heaven that's been described to me, is like this ableist fantasy. That it's because it's like you go there and like your peak fitness.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I've never.
Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're
like
right.
You
so the wrong things will be gone. Like all the bad
Like
things.
what's that
you're
about?
Right. You're right.
Like we'll go to heaven and you won't need that wheelchair anymore. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Or whatever. Like I think that if heaven means that all I don't know what that would mean, but I think that it is not loving for all of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So that paradigm early on, I think I felt betrayed by it. I felt like, oh, it's more evidence that this system doesn't love me as I am.
That's right.
Or love those I love.
Yeah.
So that I've had to kind of, kick out the door.
Yeah.
And find a new way.
Yeah. I won't go on and on about this because I think we understand each other, but the way I've been conscious with you're going to die and the spaces we hold, not denying someone the chance to say if they need to, like at open mic, that their mom's in heaven and they're just crying in gratitude because they know she's there and they'll be with her someday. Like I'm not going to take that away from anybody, and it was important for me to have it during part of my life.
Absolutely. And
I think it dismisses what we have a little to count on that as well, then, like if we're going to be in heaven, like death isn't really real. Like we're not going to lose
we
this,
don't even
like it's not, what are we
just
worried
more
about?
denial.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's a version of denial.
I think that heaven, I'm saying this to, I think heaven is real, but I think it's a practice.
Yeah.
Not a place.
Yeah.
I think it's
You mean accessible here?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's something we make together in a moment when we hold the truth with love together. And that can be an ecstatic experience. And that's a little heaven. We're making a little heaven.
You're right.
Right now.
We are. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what I feel.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that if heaven is a way to dismiss grief, oh, what a disservice to all of our beautiful, deep souls that live on grief. I mean, it's what are we? We're made of it. We're made of grief and joy in this dance together. I think that's the substance of our beings. So to say, actually, I'm deleting this whole section of me, it just will never be true. So you'll always have to live with this confusion about why you aren't able to live in a perpetual state of okayness. You know? And if you need heaven to get through the day, go for it.
Yeah.
That's what seriously, these days are long.
Oh, for sure.
These days are hard.
Oh, for sure.
And I think any heaven you want. I mean, I have this thing where not every day, but a lot of days, I make up a new God for myself.
Great. Tell me.
Like I'll be like,
tell me more.
Here we are. Okay. Yeah. But I'll be like, what God would feel good? I'll be like, a baby.
Oh, yeah.
I'll think of a baby that's always fat and happy. And I'll just think about that. And that'll be the God of my choosing today.
And then well, before you go to the next day, how will that big baby be with you in a day? Like you'll name that at the beginning of the day, or suddenly it'll dawn on you. And then is it a touchstone for how you're in the day? Or is it just like a prayer in the morning? You're like, this is God.
So, and this is not every day because I have a 14-month-old and a 6-year-old and and I have an iPhone, that's like really cool.
Yeah, you have other gods. You have gods already.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So I just want to be honest that it's not every day, but when I need a God, which is a lot of days, I found out for myself that if I kept picturing the same thing, it would die. If it didn't change, it died. So I would just be like trying to recreate this feeling of connection I had for something that had actually shapeshifted or had moved in another way. It reminds me of how we still have to love our loved ones when they've shapeshifted, when they've moved through death. If I'm still looking for a body, I'm not going to find it.
Yeah. How will you find them in this new form? Yeah.
That's right. So I sort of opened that invitation to my idea of whatever God might be and said, what is the God I need today or could love me today and this something will come. And then usually I say, what do I need to know? Or like, what do I need to hear? What might help? And then they'll give me something. They'll give me a little something and I might write it down or it might just feel good for a minute. And maybe I forget 15 minutes later, or maybe I have a hard moment and it comes back. It's a practice, a trying.
Yeah.
The God of the day.
Yeah, I love that. I want to just quickly acknowledge more of what I'm feeling about getting to talk to you. Like, it reminds me of some of the conversations I've had. Like, I'm sure you know Sophie Strand and just back then, which is just like a ridiculous way to put it. It feels like when I was talking with her, I was regularly talking about feeling like I was on cocaine. I was just like, whoa, I'm just here. I'm just like, so, and it's just like such a gross way to, but it also works, you know, it describes like how intensely energized and right. But it's, the experience is clean and it's vibrant. And when I say ravenous, it's the word I go to because it feels like I'm just so eager to get as much out of this time with someone who is maybe also relating to the moment in that way too. And simultaneously already the amount of satisfaction that I could feel simultaneously, how enough it's already been to just get to be with you. You know, it's so wild to feel all that. And it connects to the joy and grief and the what you dreamed to get Sean. And I want to go back to that real briefly.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when I met Sarah, my wife, I wasn't present yet to her dying. And it feels like then to me, hearing you say that is a way that you're naturally in the world, or maybe started being in the world 15 years ago, maybe earlier than that, where your relationship with Sean, it doesn't have to be a he'll die young kind of thing or die a month after I meet him. It is what you said, which is like the eternity in the blink of an eye, and the same thing. Like it's just he will. And you feeling the love and knowing him coming and feeling that you would be together meant immediately to the losing of him, and that we could live in life holding both those simultaneously with such clear perspective, you know, about what matters. There's just like no way not to be clear about what matters if you're holding that at the same time. And how hard it is to hold it both at the same time, by the way.
It's terrible. It's terrible and delicious. You know, it's like when you were saying that, I just felt joy rise up in me because, my God, I get to love him. You know, I get to love him. I have the privilege of loving him. I get to feel loved in this life. And boy, I've been hurt, man. I've been hurt badly and too young. And I get to love somebody. And I feel so extraordinarily joyful and lucky and like I want to shout, like I want to, and this is why maybe I'm a singer, because I can't bear it. I can't bear the beauty of it, that against all odds, I'm in love, and not just with him. I'm in love with the whole world. I get to do that. I get to love and love and love. And that's what it means for me to be alive now. I get to do that, and it sucks and it hurts and it's ornery and it's itchy and it's all that too. It's terrible. It's a devastation to love all that will die. But what an honor. What an honor to sit next to life, knowing its brevity. What an honor. So I feel what I have to always work on for myself is just is the feeling of emergency, because I feel so much urgency towards life. It's like maybe it has to do with this ravenousness that you feel. You know, I am learning how to rest and learning how this awe I feel can also be felt in stillness, must be felt in stillness, must be felt. And this is something, I'm really going now. Whew.
Yeah.
But this is something I feel
just loving it all.
So deeply with those in my life who I have been near while they were dying. This profundity of surrender that I think my closest experience of it has been through the experience of awe. I feel like awe for me is like practice for dying, because it makes me go, oh, it's so much bigger than me. It's so much smaller than me. And if I think I end and begin in my own skin, look again. So awe has been what I turn to over and over again when it's hard, when it's really hard. I go, look, but wow. Wow. Even my own pain. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just curiosity is not good enough. Awe is the word, but there is some kind of like, just fascinated by it all. Just
yes.
And really, I do mean this when I keep talking about getting to have an exchange with you being what I say a lot at the shows and in our events and in some of our, spaces, facilitating grief and talking about death and really acknowledging if we are bound and connected to these truths that we're speaking to so readily here, there is likely a constant crying and laughing hysterically because like a moment I had this weekend with my family, we took a little like sort of local trip here in the Bay Area to be together. And it was beautiful, just so sweet to be with them. And I'm just like, in ways we might relate, just seeing it all go away at the same time as I'm getting to like relish it. And I had this moment alone walking by some grass kind of on a hillside and just being struck. And it's rare I would feel this way, but just struck and in awe of how ridiculous that patch of grass is, and how easy and maybe even needed in our culture, let's say. I want to be careful I want to both say it's understandable and that there's things we're living in the context of that just don't make room for us to be in awe.
Yes.
And so really feeling that descriptor there, the like looking around wide-eyed, can we just keep connected to that option, of relating to reality? And like you said, the devastation too, not just the beauty.
Oh yeah, honey. Yeah. I mean, our I don't know, man. I think awe is so available to us, but it is the enemy of commerce for sure.
I mean, grief too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've never thought about that. You saying awe too, is an enemy of like commerce, capitalism in a way, pure, unadulterated, just because you don't need an awe. You don't need to buy. No. You might want to consume, but you don't want to consume. Okay, speaking for myself, like when I'm in awe, I'm not inclined to buy stuff or buy a thing. What I want is more of like what we're sharing here. This is what I want. That's why I feel what I'm feeling talking to you, is because I'm actively in awe and feeling my grief. And this is enough,
This is enough, baby.
Yeah.
One time I was traveling. We were traveling in South Africa years ago, and we were just driving down a regular road, and there were little black dots off in the distance, and we thought maybe they were moving, so we stopped the car, and they started to come towards us. And we just realized they looked like, first I thought they were gods, and then I thought they were dinosaurs, and then I realized they were ostriches. And
both.
So they were like gods and dinosaurs. And Sean was like, "Oh, cool," and was, amazed at their beauty. And I started to walk towards them, and they were they like glide. They would sort of glide. And I realized they were gliding fast. And Sean started to say, okay. And I was like, what? And he's like, you should, honey, you got to get in the car. You got to get in the car. But my overwhelming sensation in that moment was they should eat me. They should eat me. And that would be all right.
Mm-hmm.
I felt maybe cuckoo. Okay. But I felt this feeling like their divinity was so clear that just being in proximity to them made me want to dissolve.
Mm-hmm.
It made me want my body to become their body. It made me feel like death like that would be a joyful thing, that could be something I could celebrate, and I would become ostrich feather and ostrich turd, and that would be great.
Yeah. And
I would live then as the sun reflecting off the back of this holy animal that had desired me for lunch.
Yeah.
You know,
to be consumed.
To be consumed by that which is beautiful.
And you say that. You say dissolve, to build things that are dissolved, to be in moments where you're able to dissolve.
Yeah.
Like yourself.
Yes.
Because that I mean, I people are going to be like, dude, these two are tripping. These motherfuckers are tripping. I'm be like, okay, I'm sorry. It's hard to give you what it feels like, right? But like this to talk about the moment that we immediately dropped in with, there is a feeling of like all the stuff dropping away, you know, that might be like stressful or distracting or, you know, and it is a version of the enough, but there is like too the dissolving into like you and your presence of being, the way your attention and tending to being here, you know, like it is a version of like consuming, you know, me. And that feels like yummy and needed, you know, and a relief. You said relief, I think, at the beginning. Yeah, right.
It's a feast. It feels, I mean, oh man, I feel so much about this idea of building things that fall apart and on purpose. And there's a lot of traditions of that. Like I'm a Jewish pagan witch. I don't know what I am, but I come from a few different bloodlines. And one of them is Judaism, and I care about that. And you know, in that tradition, we build sukkahs, you know, which are beautiful earth-made huts in which to feast and celebrate, that are built to be taken apart and must be rebuilt again and again in community. And I think, and there was this rabbi whose name I don't remember, who proposed, I can't believe I don't remember their name, but I don't. When the Twin Towers fell, and they were sort of gathering proposals about what will we make, and of course, well, they chose what they chose, but their proposal, this rabbi's proposal, was to make a sukkah, because we would have to always be remembering and remaking it, and it would have to always be dissolving into the earth and re-adorned with abundance over and over and over again. And I like that idea very much. And it feels like another way to practice for dying, to see how carefully and lovingly we can make something that also has to end, that also has to go back into the earth, and that maybe that our work can be to make of ourselves a feast for the earth. So when we go, we're planted like a seed, you know, and grow something spectacular across time. That's how I feel. And I think we can practice that in music. I think music is a way to touch that which sparks up and lives only for a moment. It's a way to touch grief. It's a way to look at the truth in a way that makes us want to live, instead of a way that makes us feel too afraid to go on. you know? And the reality is that Sean and I are spending our whole lives making things that are meant to disappear. That's what we do. We make an hour with somebody. We make an hour in a room playing songs. And no matter how hard we work to make that hour beautiful, it will never, ever happen again. It's over. It's over.
Sorry to bust in on this conversation here, but this is podcast producer Nick Jana, and I just have to because the man told me that I have to do it. And by the man, I mean Ned Buskirk, the host. He said, could you record the mid-show thing this week, Nick? I said, sure. I'll just dip in here and talk over the music and say, You're Gonna Die is a 501c. I always forget if it's 3C or C3. I should probably look that up. It is a nonprofit organization. We do more than just this podcast. We do other episodes of this podcast, but we also go into prisons and host open mics and chances for people to connect and express themselves. We host open mics in venues in the Bay Area and other places. We do hospice work. Sometimes we have online open mics. We have writing workshops online. We've got t-shirts. We've got hankies. Now, this is a thing that Ned would never say, so I feel like I have the opportunity to say this here. It all starts with Ned. It all emanates from Ned, his heart and his brain. He began this organization like 13 years ago or so, and it's grown to be just a wonderful beacon for people all over the world, not to mention this lovely podcast and conversations like this. So, if you want to know more about the organization, you should check it out, yg2d.com. See when a show's coming up, make a donation. That's short for donation. Or, if you're short on resources, you can always rate the podcast, leave a review, tell a friend about it. Helps us so much. Back to this beautiful music that I made, and then back to the conversation.
Sean and I and many other musicians, many other artists are already kind of walking in a line around what art and ritual mean together and how to, I never say I'm making a ritual because I think that has a certain set of ideas around it. Especially for all my beloveds and myself who are church traumatized, that there can have this feeling of, oh, that means it's not for me, or that means that I won't be accepted. It means I can't burp and I can't laugh and I can't, it means,
yes.
It can feel like a word that imposes something rather than liberates something. So I like saying, well, we're going to do we're going to do a concert and tell a bunch of jokes. We're going to try to be honest about how we are tonight. We're going to assume that every single person who comes into the room is going through something terrible because they are, or just did, or is about to, and try to meet their souls there with my own vulnerability, right? Not that they have to take care of me, but to say, I also have been broken by the beauty and the horror of this world, sometimes in the same moment. And isn't that something? I think most of what we do is just going, wow, isn't that something?
Yeah.
That we're all so sad and so angry, and yet here we are breathing together for this moment, you know. And I have mixed feeling. I used to never put anything on the internet. I felt, well, I think I felt self-protective. I felt scared that the internet would be mean to me, or, you know, there's that, and that can happen. But also I didn't know what it meant to film what for me is often in a ritual practice, and let them see my face that way up close. Let them see when I'm really shouting in my grief, what that does, what is that in an iPhone, you know? I'm still learning how that feels for me, and learning how to protect myself within that. It's not something I understand yet, but I did, as so many of us did in the beginning of the pandemic and the great racial awakening that happened during that time. It felt like it was worth the gamble. Like we were dying, and it was time to try. And I'm glad that I did.
Me too.
But I also need to make I make a lot of things that no humans ever see. You know, things that are meant to dissolve into the world and aren't for people even.
Yeah, I feel like you would very naturally be someone. I imagine you kind of writhing on a floor somewhere and sometime, just like, like you said, like yelling, but bursting into song, you know, and getting it out in that way that, for me, and the way I know your music is profoundly beautiful, and your voice is incredible, you know, and how you express yourself in that way. But to be doing that for yourself feels essential to the ways you're connecting it to other community. You know, it's like that it has to be worth your own like version of medicine or creative expression, you know, for it to ever have meaning somehow translatable into a video on Facebook or even like the concert space. And so I really sense that about you. I did especially want to like highlight that you must regularly just burst into song all of a sudden. I mean, is that fair? Is that a fair assessment?
I'm a singer. That's my nature for sure. That was always going to be so. I don't know that
all singers do that, though. I just feel like with you, I don't know why I've just got hung up on that image, but just imagining you in heartbreak, maybe, especially crying and writhing over like hurt. And then I'm really, for some reason, keep connecting to another interview you did, if we can call it that. I don't love the word, but another conversation you had for a podcast where it was about the cracking, you know, your voice cracking, like let it crack, like needing that crack, and you being in the world in that way, even in private.
That is the truth. Yeah. Well, and essentially in private, first, and then in relationship to divinity, and then in relationship to my family, and then in relationship to community, you know. But I feel like, first alone, and then in the collective, almost all of the time. Yeah, I mean, but what's amazing is that when we're in community, we have something to break into, right? That I feel like I'm in a perpetual, and have maybe always been in a state of breaking. I think this is part of my nature, to be breaking open over and over, and feel broken open by my life and by the world. And breaking, meaning breaking like dawn, you know, breaking can be breaking towards life. But when we break in the collective, when we let ourselves do that and have a safety to do that, like in the spaces that you make, that you're talking about, there's a basket to hold you. Right. And I do actually think that we think more about, we say even to people, well, take time to grieve, like if maybe we don't say that often, but we might.
No, I've heard it. You go.
You go over there and you feel all that and you come back when you're ready to lace up your boots,
That's right. Yeah.
Rather than saying, oh, come here and grieve. Come here and break into this vessel that I'll make for you. And if one person can't make that alone, but let's have a moment of collective where you can break and we can hold that for you. And then everything that comes out, it's not going to be held by the people. It's going to go into the earth. It's going to go into the air. It's going to go where it's meant to go. It's going to get recycled. It's going to get remade beautifully into the poem of the world, right? But I think sometimes you do need holding around you to be able to do that safely, and someone makes sure that you don't hit your head on a rock, and someone brings you water, and then someone brings you your iPhone when you need a break. You know,
that room to fall apart, to collapse.
That's right.
To be like in the mess of it,
That's right.
Yeah.
And
I love the tenderness of that, the like, don't hit your head over here. I'm going to put a hand there. I'm not even going to stop you from slapping about, but I'm going to put like a pillow between you and this hard place.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, our toddlers know how to do it. Our babies know how to do it. They have so much wisdom around falling apart.
Yeah.
And we are so embarrassed that they do, and I think whenever we're embarrassed of something so intimate, I feel like sometimes there's a feeling of what you're afraid of in yourself, and sometimes even a kind of envy, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. We've all decided we don't do that.
Yeah.
Or the rage, just the other day, there was this video of some guy on an airplane raging because this baby was weeping. And the thing I kept thinking, I thought, come on, man. But I also thought, you were once a baby and you will once be dead,
And someone got mad at you.
That's what I thought. I thought this man needs to weep. Oh no, this man needs to weep. How long has it been since this man wept?
Oh my gosh.
How long has
anger
it been?
is the thing he's figured out is like somehow the acceptable way of getting the emotion out.
That's right. That's right. And the outrage, we don't do that. We don't do that here. When I think we're all perpetually doing it with a big hard shell around it. And we need that, but when others help us create a space of safety, then we can let that release. And in singing, I do think we can practice that in a safe way, even when we're alone. We can make the sound of it. We can remember how to make that sound that was a birthright that we came in with. The first thing we did.
Right away. Yeah, that's right.
We know how. So, to come home to that and to feel at home in the broken places. Because you're invited. Look, here we are.
Yeah.
Shattered, laughing, doing great.
Totally. Doing great. Yeah.
Doing great. Alive, surely alive.
Well, I wonder for you, Abigail, you just briefly noted this, that too young, maybe there was things forcing you to break open and fall apart. Maybe. So it's both like acknowledging the healthy need for that in ourselves, but also it seems like you're addressing something in your life story that maybe came too soon. And I don't even relate to that, because there's a part of me, I didn't lose my parent when I was a kid, but losing her at 26 is a pretty, young time
That's
to lose.
Young.
Yeah. And there's a way I feel about harm.
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, too soon, on time, late, there's always the inclination to think, boy, if my mom were to die when she was 90,
I don't know. See, then you start getting into, well, how much grief it is to like have someone get so old and be in that part of life, and then have all that time shared and then lose them, you know? The comparison of 80 years to 26, you know, like
it never helps us.
All
I think
grief.
these the grief contest never works. You know, we all lose.
No, you're right. We all lose eventually. And stuff happened to you, and I feel like I have my version of it that has you in the world now, maybe too. That's the part of me that thinks about when I skip past the it's not fair, or it was too soon, or I was too young. There's this way you are here, Abigail, is because that stuff came for you so early, right? Do you relate to that? And by the way, we're not saying explicitly what these things are, so I want to be fair to, might need to articulate that. But where do you want to go with this right now? Yeah,
I feel like absolutely I am who I am because of how I was hurt, and because of how my mother was hurt, and because of how her mother was hurt, and all this trauma and layers and layers of it. But I also am who I am because of how I was held, you know, and the song that was sung into my ear in the nighttime, you know. So I feel like, and maybe, you know what, maybe we would have been just as beautiful and sad if everything had gone officially right.
You're right.
But because I think that there is an original grief that is the truth of the world. I mean, just look at how the world works. We all have to eat each other to live.
Mm-hmm.
Things have to die for us to live. Mm-hmm. So that sucks.
It's built in.
It's built in. I think, so I think, yes, there's trauma, but what I'm feeling right now, and I don't mean to, yes, that's not an offhand thing. That's deep, but also I think any person can be struck by the grief of what it means to be a living being on this planet. Even when things are going exactly as they're meant to go, because we are meant to die. We know that. It's not a mistake or an accident or something going wrong. Even if it happens in a way that isn't what we might have chosen for our loved ones. It's still supposed to happen. And I think our job on the planet, maybe we have a few. I think one of our big jobs is to be meaning makers around this original truth that life only comes from death. That's just going to be true. And we are supposed to rail against it, and we're supposed to be angry, and we're supposed to be confused. We're supposed to be all of those things, because all of that goes into the poem of who we are and what the world is. And it's so extravagantly complicated and beautiful, and it's meant to be. It's meant to be. You know, I wish that every bad thing that ever happened to me or ever happened to you, if I could take it away, I would.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not one of those who says, the good thing we went through that terrible thing because I got so strong. I'm not sure that's true. For me. If I could undo what hurt you, Ned, and what hurt me, I'd snap my fingers, baby, and I'd put you on a plush couch with everyone you love, having a good day. I would. And even then, we'd be weeping together. We would, at the beauty and at the truth that we're all ending all the time. And that which we love has to die, and in fact dies to keep us alive. Oof.
Yeah, I know when you say all that between you and I, there's something I connect to that's just the familiarity with our arriving here, even just as we started to talk, you know?
Yeah, I know.
So it's like, it feels really true. Maybe if there's some way of saying especially true right now, it feels that right now. And there's a way I'll say sometimes, you know, especially when someone maybe comes into one of our grief workshops, you know, they're there because of a loss. It's like, you know, I'm so sorry. I wish this had never happened. And I'm so glad you're here. You know, like it's both at the same time. And in that is while, yeah, I get generally what you're saying is that you and I would likely cry together. And because it's inherent in our existence is if we really are in honest relationship with being alive, it's there, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much about engaging in this like communal grief reality, being in what's heartbroken and making room for people in it that has the element of our chance to be together is because this thing that we would take away if we could happened. You know, like part of how we're brought together sometimes is because of these things that we wish never occurred, you know?
Well, honey, when you say that, it's like, so Sean and I, the first time Sean and I got pregnant and Sean was helped.
yeah. I think I know how it works.
Is that this podcast?
But there's some listeners, for any listeners, this is how.
It was me. I got pregnant.
Yeah.
And when I got pregnant, I felt like this baby that I became pregnant with was gonna be the meaning, was gonna all the shit I'd already gone through, that this was like the meaning fruit, you know, like I was gonna have this baby and I was gonna start this new family. I was gonna start over and tell a new story to this little one. And I loved this baby. And then I lost this baby. And I felt totally betrayed. And I felt like outside of my story, like I had been knocked from my destiny or something, like I was in the wrong movie. And I stayed there a long time, and I was angry a long time, and I felt empty a long time. I didn't get it. And I will always remember that feeling, so that when people come to me in their moment like that, I don't say, well, it all, well, you know, it's all for the best. It's better now.
But it fed your life. It's feeding your life.
Right. Like I don't. I say, oh no, I'm so sorry that you're knocked from your life, that you feel that God betrayed you that day. That's how it felt. And the truth is that was the beginning of me becoming a mother. Mm-hmm. That's how I became a parent, was through this death. And it, just like falling in love with Sean, to do that, I had to trade my immortality. I had to look at, I'm going to die and I'm going to love someone who's going to die. Right? That's an old mythological trade, love for death.
That's right.
And we made that bargain, right? Mm-hmm. And then to become a mother.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
To become a mother meant loving across the death line. Mm-hmm. It meant actually looking at the truth that I have no control, that I have infinite love and zero control. That's what I say to myself. Infinite love, zero control. This is what it means to be a parent. Mm-hmm. And what I found out later through having my first baby, who was a NICU baby and who we almost lost, but we did not lose, who's 6 years old, playing on his Switch as we speak.
Yes. Hell yes.
And then having another miscarriage that also broke me apart. But
oh my gosh.
I got to keep what I learned. The thing that gave me, the thing that's true for me is that I got to keep all the love. That's mine. All 4 times I've been pregnant, because we have another baby now. The love I made was real. It was real, and it was made briefly but deeply. And just as surely as their cells are still circulating in my body, my love for them remains and remains. And the truth of that, and you know what form it takes a lot of the time, is grief. That's how I feel my love, is with an ache. But even that ache has a shout of hallelujah inside of it, because I got to love them. Really, and those 2 that I lost, especially the first one who I lost, was a very difficult loss. But both of them, I was the only one really who got to love them that way. And maybe this is, I know that miscarriage and child loss is not talked about very much, and I know why. It's very hard. It's really hard, and talking about their lives I think some people even feel it's kind of macabre to talk about, but I have to talk about it because it's true for me. It's true. And if I don't talk about it, then they're dead again. You know what I mean?
I do.
So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. What a way to put it.
I remember, and I am so grateful for them and for my babies that I get to hold in my arms. What a delight. What a messy mess of a happy delight it is to have these children.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for all that. The way you put things so well, that so resonate. But I'm just really wanting to return to what you said. A friend of mine recently, a dear friend who is wanting to have kids, but also understandably unsure about that endeavor.
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. Don't do it.
The worst thing that's ever happened to me, and the best thing that's ever happened to me. Right. And I tell them as much. I tell people, like, listen, you not having kids is completely understandable. So I want to make plenty of space for you deciding not to.
Amen.
And it is like one of the most important things, and I'll say that, one of the most important things I've ever done, and most beautiful things, and the most I learned probably is from this. But when I'm talking to her, something that really connected to what you shared is you feeling this unsure, you feeling this scared and terrified of it, you wanting to talk to start figuring out what you're going to do meaningfully is the beginning of you being an incredible mother.
Yes.
And you saying that for this baby that taught you that first.
That's right.
Oh my gosh.
I thought it meant I was not a mother. I thought it meant in the moment that I was a lemon, that my body wasn't supposed to do it and there was something wrong with me. I was sure of it. And that is part of being a parent, is the truth that you are ill-equipped. You are. I don't know any parent who goes, I'm nailing it.
Yeah.
Wow.
No way.
You know,
Not me.
No, I even on my best day, and that's not because I'm trying to make a perfect thing. It's because they are so beautiful that I want to show up so beautifully and deeply for them. And I need to wipe their butts and make dinner and, figure out life. And that is the deepest, hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Is navigate that. But no, the people I worry about are my beloveds who say they are ready. And then I call them like 3 weeks after the baby comes to them, one way or the other, however their baby came, and go like, so, are you okay?
Yeah.
And
are you ready now?
They're not okay.
Right. Yeah.
They're not okay. It's a ego death becoming a parent. Something has to be let go of.
Oh my gosh, over and over again. So many things. So many things. And I really don't mean to, saying it's the worst thing that ever happened to me. I mean, it's just hard, and anyway, so that I'm so glad we arrived to that piece. Cause I know you'd mentioned maybe wanting to talk about it today. And I think, to connect it to why you brought it up originally, when I asked you to fill out the form for what we might cover in our conversation, you addressed it as like what I think you even just also acknowledged is these are kinds of deaths we don't probably make good time for as readily.
Yes.
And how needed it is to talk about. I think obviously I believe we need to talk more about our dead. We, so many things you've shared, like the reason why and making room for grief and like the kind of normal death to talk about though, that while we do need more room for that, there's other versions of loss that are just so hard to like find space, especially with community, to engage with and find a place to remember you're not alone and to find healing and the medicine of connecting and that kind of loss. And so I'm so glad you just have been going everywhere I wanted to go. And I wanted to check in as we're kind of in our last probably 10 or 15 minutes, I bet. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, I feel like we could just talk for hours, but I really want to say to you what I said to Bio Kamalafe. I'm not sure if you know him and his work, but oh my gosh, I told him at the end, I was like, I just feel like I could talk to you for eternity and everything is so complete.
Yeah, I feel that too. I feel like if we had just laughed and cried at each other for that first 5 minutes, that would say it all, though. That's right. Pretty eloquent. That's right. The truth. That's how I feel.
And that's it.
Laughing and crying.
That's it.
That's right.
That's who I want to spend time with in my life, by the way. And I make time for whoever, hopefully cross my path and to be the kind of person to open to it. And I think what I'm feeling with you, again, for the 8th time trying to articulate this, it is I want to be with the people who laugh and cry hysterically, yeah, that's it. I think that's the end of the sentence. That's a full stop. And yes, maybe we'll release like a special version of this episode minus any talking. It's just us making noises and crying and laughing. That'll be available on Patreon, everybody.
That's my music.
Yeah, exactly. That's your music. I want to check in as we feel complete and the enoughness of our time. Your last email to me I can tell even now, like this might be sort of a unnatural leap suddenly to have this at the end but I also care deeply about you more than I did before I got to talk to you. And now we're friends. And so I want to acknowledge that email at least and just say, this recent loss with this father figure and the complications of that relationship and the being estranged and then losing a person in the context of having lost them already, in a way?
I wanted to tell you that was, someone who's really important to me just died like 5 days ago, I think, although time moves funny when this is happening. And he hasn't spoken to me in about 5 years. And it's because of, well, there's deep family history, like I spoke about. There's a lot, but I also, I wrote about it. I sang about it. I wrote about it. I'm a memoirist. That's one of the forms my work takes, you could call it. And I think that was too much and too scary, and so he cut off with me. A few people did. Most of my family.
Oh, can I just be clear with you real quick? Actually, for me,
yeah.
What you're describing is like the play and your work and your creative output around this stuff that your family lived through and that all this community was affected by. I know that your play with Sean is a lot of it is about this, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, one of them is, yes.
Okay. And this person couldn't be with that. And that's part of how I see.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And we were already pretty broken apart, but the talking about it ended up being the end of it. And I wanted to tell you because I knew it would be with me, and he's with me today. And because the same when I went through miscarriages, I really wanted to find art about it. I wanted to find somebody talking about it. I felt so alone in it for a while. And we've made now a bunch of art about it. You know, I just can't shut up about it. And other people's experience, you know, it's so new. I haven't, the song of it maybe is just beginning, but I wanted to say out loud that sometimes we lose people, and I won't go to the funeral, and I won't, you know, and we didn't resolve it in this lifetime. Yeah. But I also want to say that when he died, I felt his love so clearly. I just felt loved. I felt like his love for me and my love for him met for a moment, and all the shit and all the mistakes and all the fear and all the need and desperation and disappointment, and that died. That died. And I think that I don't know where he is. I don't know what he's becoming. I don't know what he wanted to become or what he believed at the end of his life. But I know that I believe in our love, and I feel it. I feel it with me, and I feel it in the world, and I feel it as a gift to the world. Our love in this horizon, beyond relationship and then beyond death. I believe in it. So I think I wanted to say that to you because I knew you'd hold me in that. And also because there are these deaths that I feel like I don't even know what to call him. He wasn't my biological dad, you know? So it's so tricky to talk about it and honor it. And I hope that me doing it, I hope other people will just not shut up about the beautiful truth of what they love.
Thank you, Abigail.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
This was wild.
Wow. Can I say, you? Oh my gosh, I love you so much. Can I?
Is it too soon?
No, it's not. I mean, partly that's what I want in life. And this is the kind of like, I've said this 30 ways. So no, it's not too soon. And I'm so glad to meet you in this way and to return to you or to, whatever it is that I'm feeling. I want to say that you're like, thank God for your meaning making in this life, that you could be so skilled and quick and driven, maybe ravenous then is the word, to get to it, that you would already, for this person, see the transformation that we talked about earlier. The like, it's perfect that you don't know what to call him, because even more than ever, it doesn't matter,
Hey, oh, wow. Oh, thank you for that. Oh, wow.
And feeling the coin, like the estrangement and the upset and the anger and the alienation and all that as definitively the other side of love.
Yeah.
There's no separation. And that this time ahead will bring the other side of the coin like you wish and want. And that's a prayer, but it's also like a certainty,
Ooh.
because of who you are and how you're alive.
Oh, my love, was it you who was just here? The empty room is ringing again. Oh, my love, I can feel when you've been near. Oh, I can feel when you've been near again. And I am looking around every corner, and I am sitting as still as I can. And I am trying to hold myself open. Oh, won't you turn me around, turn me around, turn me around, turn me around, so I can see your face again. Oh, my love, it's been dark since you've been gone. Oh, you took the sunshine with you again. Oh, my love, I can feel when you've been gone. Oh, I can feel when you've been gone again. And every road is a circle, and every word is a door. And I am trying to hold myself open, and I am turning around. I'm turning around. I'm turning around. I'm turning around. I am turning around. I'm turning around. I'm turning around, so I can see your face again. Oh, I wanna see your face again.
That moment of Abigail singing to me at the end of that conversation, holy crap. So good. So good. Such good music. If you want to get more of that almost feeling like the music has a spontaneity to it often. I feel like they improv some of their music, some of their tracks, a lot of their tracks. Definitely go check out the Bengsons music. But boy, what a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Can I say I cried more than ever? Can I say it's my new favorite? Thank you so much, Abigail, for saying yes to being on the show. What a treat. Nick Jana, how are you today?
You ever feel like you're in the multiverse?
You guys, just full disclosure, I just recorded like 30 different maybe endings, and Nick just sat quietly through everything as I tried to figure out all the things maybe that would work and be needed for the episode. Yeah, I know what it's like, and boy, that was so good of you to be patient with me.
It's very it's very current storytelling style to just have everything.
Yeah, simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, inspired by this conversation with Abigail, I have one thing I'd like to talk to you about.
Spider-Man?
No. It's about this experience in life that I just cherish so much, and I feel like You're Going to Die has offered me many versions of it, but it's that feeling of meeting someone and falling in love with them very immediately, and also the familiarity that you sense when you meet that person, like they've been a friend of yours forever. And I probably could list some of the people I know through you that might represent that version of meeting. How does this land in the conversation of mortality? I think it's just like, this thing is so mysterious. I've been feeling lately inspired by some of Rachel Naomi Raymond's words about how we can treat even the facilitation I do and the grief work I do as a big question mark, like being in the sacred mystery of it all, the holiness of how we tend to the moment, and knowing like the people I meet, the spirits that I meet in this lifetime are such a profound version of that, like sacred, holy wonder, that awe-inspiring, like mouth open wide, like, holy crap, like this is incredible and worthwhile. I feel like that's part of what I got talking with Abigail, and I wanted to see if you relate to that experience when you met certain people in your life.
Absolutely. And the flip side of that is when that doesn't happen, and can that also feel as holy and necessary?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the flip side of the coin of like, wait, the magic isn't happening, and this isn't like taking off and going super deep and going in a million different directions and
was that
opening up
you
the
think
multiverse.
Yeah, is that something you think about? That's great. I love that.
Well, you and I talk about this in our different ceremonies and things that we do, of just like, oh, well, that was good, and that was like, there was nothing wrong with what happened, but like it didn't open up this magical portal, and did I do something wrong? Yeah. But like mutually, I think, you know.
Well, we talk about too that we assume when I had the me, we've talked about that, where it's like we can't assume that it's mutual. We feel like, in comparison to how many times we've done the like heart cracking, creative, like connecting, you know, spontaneous moment, performatively, all those things, like in comparison to the amount of times we've done that and felt the, oh my gosh, this is holy and sacred and connecting, we don't realize, you know, maybe it's a version of that for the person, but it's not the same for us. But what you're, I think, getting at is, well, how is it still that, even if we're not feeling it that way?
And I was joking about the multiverse, but I did see Spider-Man the other day, and I am thinking about this new modern storytelling style of multiverse storytelling, where it acknowledges that people have different realities, and you can't necessarily judge someone by how they're experiencing or receiving something in one moment, because they might have this completely different reality that goes into what they're experiencing. And you just don't know. Like you literally can't see it or experience it. It's a different dimension.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what's encouraging that type of storytelling to happen, but that's what I get out of it when I'm watching that. Is this feels like the experience of, you know, being just super sensitive artist and feeling all these different things and having a whole lifetime pass before my eyes in 1/2 second, and other people not experiencing that and getting that. And I feel a million miles away and closer to people that are missing or dead or gone than to the person in front of me. And that reality it's comforting to see depicted in modern storytelling of we're all experiencing different levels of things at different times. And I don't think it's I don't know. I don't think it's a modern experience. I just think storytelling, because of technology, is allowing us to explore that in ways that you couldn't put on screen 20 years ago. But it taps into, I think, a really human thing of how am I not connected to this, and I'm connected to something else, and like, it feels so real, but it feels so off, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say connecting the, like, I'm in awe of Abigail and that time we shared talking, to the, like, I'm in awe that I don't understand, that I know there's something occurring here that is a big question for me. It's new. It's a perspective that's not familiar, and I could learn from it or expand in it, in these, like, limitless possibilities. How easily we get confined to, like, our little showroom walking around existence on this planet, when there's potential to have ourselves, like, bent out of that reality because of a version of what I think you're getting at, and how creativity, especially maybe cinema lately, is offering a chance for that too. And maybe, like you said, it's been around, you know, I'm thinking of other authors and creatives in history who have played with that. But I think maybe especially cinematically, it's a trippy new realm that in the last 5 or 10 years, there, especially in the Marvel universe, we've, like, dipped into a bit, you know, more. These ulterior planets, this idea that there has to be another planet like Earth with someone just like me, but living just like a fraction of a different existence.
And that everything is canon. I was explaining to Otis, my stepson, yesterday, what it means to have something be in the canon or out of the canon, meaning, like, stories that might be from a different edition or version of something that usually would say, like, well, that doesn't count. Like, that's not part of this history, you know? And this new storytelling realm is saying everything counts. Everything that has ever been depicted, for example, Spider-Man, every version is real, and everything counts, and everything he's ever experienced and every villain matters. And there is something really comforting about that feeling of it all matters, you know? And I think that's, again, something that's very human, even as it's emerging out of technology and this super ultra postmodern storytelling. I think it's very human to feel like everything that's ever happened to me matters and contributes to who I am, even if nobody witnessed it or nobody acknowledges it or somebody actively represses it or denies it. It all matters, you know?
Yeah, that's great. So my next question, to peel this off of Spider-Man and the Marvel, because they're not sponsoring our podcast. What are you inspired creatively in your writing? Do you have, like, a percolating book idea or some fresh endeavor, you know, with your creativity that this is inspiring right now for you?
Well, I'm really interested in, after a book that deals with ancestry and grief and connectivity and loss, and doing a lot of performances that deal with that. I really want to deal with something whose objective is joy and humor and levity. And I was having a conversation with a friend recently of, like, how do you just decide to be funny with something? And I was saying, I think it's an attitude. I think it's an optimism, like an energy level. It's not dependent on the subject matter. You could talk about climate change. You could talk about death and decide, I'm going to make this joyous and bubbly and funny, and not in a disrespectful way, but just the lens is going to be, this is funny. Even if it's like, we're all fucked and life is so crazy and sad, you know? There's a way that you can go deeper into something and make it funny. And so I've just been thinking of experiences when something pops up in my memory of, like, oh, I want to write that story. I think immediately now, what would be the humorous lens on that? And how would I show that from a humorous lens, rather than a tendency with memoirs sometimes often is to be sinking into, like, a self absorption and like a sadness, you know, of like, oh, this happened to me. And I'm not putting that down.
No, I get it.
I've done that. And I just thinking like, can you just flip the polarity and say like, okay, what's the humorous standpoint? Which, you know, a lot of stand-ups and comedy writers do that immediately, even if it's like, this horrible thing is happening in the world, but we got to find a way to laugh at it. You know, I'm trying to think of how to switch my wiring to look at it, things like that.
Are you feeling the like healthy need for it too? Not even as a creative compulsion, but just you kind of, I mean, seems to me you'd be wanting to relate to reality in general more that way.
And to have experiences with groups, you know, when that project comes out and I do performances, as great as it's been to connect with people over grief and like that magic, I want to be like exiting the room having laughed a bunch and have sore stomach muscles and just have that, you know, like permanent grin on your face. Like, I want that experience. And I think we've all gone through this period of thinking, well, that's not possible again. Things are too bleak. Things are too sad. And then coming around to like, no, we need that. Like, I gotta have more of that. You know, like where did comedy movies go? Where did laughter go? It seems like every alum from Saturday Night Live is making some super serious, sad show. Even like Ted Lasso turned into this like drama. It's like, why is it so hard to maintain that levity in comedy? You know? Yeah. But I think it's important to keep trying and reasserting this is what I want to do.
Yeah, that's great. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling like honoring people who are grieving lately too, by reminding them that it's the flip side of a coin. And I think you might have given me this, but like the coin is not a chance. It's not a flip a coin and see what you get. It's that they're bound together, that they're soldered, they're like melted, they're two parts, and acknowledging the griever for having the part of them that's in love with being alive. Yeah. In love with, even if it's someone they lost. It's like Abigail talks about it, the immediacy of knowing Sean was waiting for her as a partner and getting the joy and feeling the life and the family waiting to be built between them together, and the like loss of him, and feeling too then like you have helped put more words to right now, the inclination, like when I go to see my cancer patients today, I've thought like, I do want to listen to Lizzo and some upbeat pop music and feel like I'm drawing something forth that I need to go into those rooms with, in opposition to thinking I need to be quiet or listen to a bunch of sad songs to get myself prepped and ready to be cracked open and raw, that there's joy waiting for me in some of these rooms today. And that it really literally could be like tapping into the one universe out there emotionally, part of the multiverse, but that one universe where I go to the hospital and that's what happens today. So.
And we can call that shadow work. You know, the shadow of a shadow can be something sunny and joyous, you know? It doesn't mean we have to like crawl through all the tears all the time. That's what I've been thinking, is the reaction to all of this grief and sadness can also be like, okay, now let's point to the light, you know?
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. One more big thanks to Abigail. What a treat. What a special, special time we shared. I hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed putting it out for you. Until next time,